I recently attended a game convention. Now, I was at this game convention to promote my recently published title, Knock Knock. While I was at this convention, I was mindful of the fact that I would soon be giving this very talk. So it led me to pay more attention to the door than I might usually. Now, as I watched the door, I was surprised to find that, on average, 1 in 4 of the people who walked through the door looked like me. To clarify, when I say looked like me, I do not mean they were white. I do not mean they were male. I mean that they were overweight white males with facial hair. Now, that said, gaming is in a renaissance. There are more independent games being published every day than ever before. On Kickstarter alone, nearly 20,000 independent games have been published, generating nearly $1 billion in gross revenue. And inclusion is on the mind of every game designer. Naturally, inviting a larger audience to buy your product makes good business sense. But beyond that, it's not only the right thing to do, but it allows games to fulfill their purpose, which is to bring people together. The opportunity to bring people together is the reason I became a game designer. This is my son, Peter, playing the kids' version of our game Knock Knock. You'll notice he's having fun, and not to brag, but he's winning. When we designed Knock Knock, we wanted it to be an inclusive game. Knock Knock as a game sits in the same genre as games like Uno, Phase 10, or The Great Del Moody. Unique to Knock Knock, each suit is represented by a color and an icon. This allows colorblind players to play a game in a genre that is typically at best indifferent towards the colorblind. Why does it matter? Because being the odd person left out isn't fun. A game mechanic or design that excludes players works counter the whole point of coming together to play a game. When a person is excluded, their response will typically fall in one of two categories. Either they'll simply withdraw, go ahead, just play without me, it's fine. Or they'll stay, but in staying, a strange thing happens. When they stay, they become the default ambassador for whatever excluded them, for whatever makes them different. For example, many women have described approaching the game table as feeling like they're on stage, as feeling like they have to act more friendly or prove that they're more competent and that they actually belong at the table. The lousy thing that occurs in this situation is that this ambassador is the one at the table instead of the actual person. You don't get to play with the individual, you play with the person they think they have to be. Unfortunately, it's not enough to simply say, well, I don't exclude anyone. It's fine. She's here. She can play. Because that's not how inclusion works. I like to think of inclusion as being like a scale. We place the included and the excluded, and over time, society, culture, media has placed weight on people for their differences. We can stop putting weight on this side of the scale, and we should. That's a great first step. But in order to balance the scale, we must actively take weight off the scale. Otherwise, it just stays imbalanced. And when we take that weight off the scale, it comes into balance, and then they can be equal. Not the same, but equal. It's a nice analogy, but what does it actually look like in real life? Well, in real life, it demands that we all be brave. For the excluded, this means choosing to be yourself. You do not owe it to anyone to be the ambassador for anything that may make you different or feel excluded. You don't owe it to people like you, and you certainly don't owe it to people different than you. For the included, it means overcoming the fear of being excluded. It means speaking out It means choosing to care. We're afraid to speak out as the included because there's a risk that we'll then be excluded. In game design, this simply means adding inclusion to your workflow, to the design. Making Knock Knock colorblind friendly didn't add cost to our game. We just had to be intentional. Now, if I'm fully honest, it didn't take a lot of courage to make a game that was colorblind friendly. There are no colorblind hate groups. No one is rallying against the colorblind. You will not find an RGB supremacist anywhere in the world. It's not a thing. But what was scary was deciding to give this talk. Because I can go online and I can search TED inclusion. I find a lot of talks. It's an important issue. I didn't find one given by a white male. We are silent. And we are silent at a time when we absolutely need to be saying, yes, please come, play with us, join. And worst of all, our silence sits in contrast to a vocal few who will actually speak hate against other people. Other people like us. If you find yourself among the included, you must speak up for the excluded. And yes, I acknowledge that whenever you do this, whenever you speak up, whether you're amongst the excluded who choose to be brave and be yourself, or amongst the included who choose to risk being excluded, you may end up alone. But at least we'll be alone together. Thank you.